Well, welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Sally Blair, Senior Director of Fellowship Programs here at the National Endowment for Democracy. On behalf of NED's International Forum for Democratic Studies, I am pleased to welcome everyone to today's presentation, How to Bring a Dictator to Justice, the Hissen Habré trial, featuring Reagan-Fussell Democracy Fellow Delphine Djiraibe. Also with us today is discussant Dave Peterson, Senior Director of the Africa Program at NED. Funded by the U.S. Congress, the Reagan-Fussell Democracy Fellows Program hosts some of the world's most dedicated democracy activists, scholars, and journalists to conduct independent research and pursue projects here at NED. Now in our 13th year, the program has hosted more than 200 fellows from over 80 countries since its founding in 2001. Within this remarkable group, our speaker today stands out for her unwavering commitment to democracy and human rights in Chad. From 1982 to 1990, Chad witnessed thousands of political killings and systematic torture under the regime of its former president, Hissen Habré. The Extraordinary African Chambers has accused the exiled former dictator, now based in Senegal, of crimes against humanity, war crimes, and torture. 24 years after the end of his rule, litigation against Habré has finally gained critical momentum in Dakar. As a member of the international team of lawyers prosecuting the case, Delphine Djiraibe is well placed to tell the story of how Habré was brought to trial and to explore the potential impact on transitional justice in Chad. She tells me that her last name means "let's build the country" in her language, and so she indeed lives up to her name. Delphine is a senior human rights lawyer and chief attorney at the Public Interest Law Center, a former NED grantee organization based in N'Djamena that she founded in 2006 to provide Chad's poor with access to justice and hold the Chadian government and extractive industries accountable for harm caused to local populations and the environment. In 1991, she co-founded the Chadian Association for the Promotion and Defense of Human Rights and has succeeded in helping victims of former dictator Hissen Habré bring him to justice. For her extraordinary efforts in protecting human rights and preserving the environment, she received the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Award in 2004. Our discussant, Dave Peterson, is the Senior Director of the Africa Program at the National Endowment for Democracy. Since 1988, he has been responsible for NED's program to identify and assist hundreds of African non-governmental organizations and activists working for democracy, human rights, free press, justice, and peace. Prior to joining the endowment, he served as Executive Director of Project South Africa of the A. Philip Randolph Educational Fund and was a freelance journalist in Africa and Turkey. We will now turn the floor over to Delphine, who will speak for approximately 25 minutes, followed by Dave for about 10 minutes. For those of you on Twitter, you can follow this presentation and contribute to the conversation by using the hashtag NEDEvents or by following the forum @ThinkDemocracy and the endowment @NEDemocracy. If you have not already done so, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. Finally, let me thank the many staff members who contributed to this event, most especially Research Associate Hillary Collins, who has offered vital assistance to Delphine's project and presentation. Thank you very much. Delphine.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you all for coming. Bringing a dictator to justice is not an easy task. It's even more complicated when this dictator is from a complicated country such as Chad. I will try to tell the story on how we were able to bring Hissen Habré to justice by following this outline. I will first talk about the motivations and give you some background information about Chad. And then I will get into the case itself to talk about the major actors and the timeline. But more important, I will take a couple of minutes to draw some recommendations and share with you some lessons learned. Why is it so important for me and my colleagues to work to bring Hissen Habré to justice? Is it a need for revenge? It is just to follow the crowd because it is the era of bringing dictators to justice? I think it's none of those. For us, first of all, it is a struggle against impunity that is a cancer for Africa. This struggle will also set a precedent for how to bring perpetrators of human rights violations, to hold them accountable and to demand compensation for victims. This is at the global level. At the national level, it will strengthen the role of law. It will also improve the human rights respect situation, and it will help address adequately the past injustices, create a mechanism for reconciliation and guarantee of non-recurrence. Now, let me give you some background information that could help you better understand the implications of the case. Chad has a long story of instability. I will draw your attention to two important dates. In 1960, all 6 regimes that have seized power by military coup, except the first one after the independence. In 1979, a civil war broke out. It was known as a war between Muslims from the northern part of the country and Christians from the southern part of Chad. In 1992, Hissen Habré, after many changes in power, he took power and established a bloody dictatorship. He was overthrown by Idriss Déby, who is in power till now in 1990. So, when Hissen Habré established the bloody dictatorship, he relied on violence, corruption, the culture of fear to be able to control the whole country. There was no freedom of opinion, of expression, nor of movement. Other ethnic groups, Hissen Habré is a Guran. For some Chadians who are in the room, they know what that means. He is a Guran, and he discriminated against all other ethnic groups. And all other ethnic groups have been slaughtered, including Arabs, Ajarais, Zakhawas, and Saras. The massacre of Saras was referred to as the Black September. It was really one of the Black Septembers that could be known in the history of Chad. More than 40,000 people have been killed, including civilians and militaries. Under Hissen Habré regime, torture is systematic. And he uses all kinds of tactics, well set up, and tactics that for sure will make a human being suffer the most before dying. So here you can see two examples. The first one here is named Arba Tarshar. Arba is 4 in Arabic. So it consists of attaching arms with a chain to legs to expand the chest, and this form of torture could stop blood flow. It could make you paralyzed. All the limbs could be paralyzed, and you can die. The second one there, I have never seen such a thing. How a human being could imagine to do such a thing to another human being. They put a car's exhaust pipe into victim's mouth and push on the accelerator, and you can just die right away. This is only two examples of tortures that I show to explain how and why it is so important to work on the case in order to make that never again such a thing should happen. But let's get into the case and talk about the major actors and also about the timeline. Who are the major actors when we talk about the Hissen Habré case? You have in one side the perpetrators, in the other side the victims and their allies, and two major key players, and I will come to that later. On the side of the perpetrators, you have Hissen Habré himself, who is a commander-in-chief managing the country with a iron hand, and his key accomplices, those are high officials that he appointed either as a member of government or as high-rank officials for the security system he put in place. So you have him and those officials and a well-set security system that he uses to harass, oppress, repress, and kill people, including women and children. As you can see in the slide here, the DDS, the Documentation and Security Directorate here report directly to Hissen Habré, and so did the ministers. So you have names there. My colleagues from Chad could know who and what those names means. Those are directors, deputies from the DDS. Next to that is what is called the Prison de la Piscine. Hissen Habré has a lot of, I may say, personal prisons. When he arrests you, he decides to put you somewhere. And this is a swimming pool that was transformed into a prison. When you get there, there is no chance that you can get out, that you can survive. It's really called the corridor of death. victims are really the central element of that process because they are the ones that suffer the most, and there is really a need to help them have access to justice. In the first picture, you can see widows holding their dead husband's photo. They come out from time to time to claim justice. This is Ajo Mokhtar, a Nigerian woman who was arrested. She is a survivor. We brought her in Dakar to testify in front of the chambers, but she recently died. Here is me and three survivors, including Ajo. We were in a meeting, a strategy meeting, before the hearings in Dakar. And this man is the current president of the Victims Association. In prison, he has a specialty to bury dead prisoners. There were 3 to do that, but 2 of them have died, and he is the only one that survived. Unsurprisingly, CSOs, human rights defenders, lawyers are natural victims' allies. They have worked with other stakeholders, including United Nations, European Union, African Union, and individual countries like France, USA, Germany, Switzerland, to secure, fund, and to get political support to move the case forward. The first picture is Reed Brody, a lawyer with Human Rights Watch. We call him dictator's hunter. Next to him is Jacqueline Mudeina. She is a lawyer and president of the Chadian Association for Human Rights. She is referred to as an icon of the case. Down here is human rights activists, lawyers, and victims. This is the one that is also in charge of the burial, and he died like a few years after Hissen Habré left. And yeah, we were in front of the Senegal tribunal in 2000 where we filed the first complaint. And those are the key players. The former Senegal's government, President Ouad, and the current Chad's government, President Déby. Their specialty is that they both lack political will, and they just play legal games to hold the case back. Now, what has happened? What really has happened over 2 decades? It has been 24 years, and now Hissen Habré is arrested. The first decade was dedicated to the preparation of the case. And this man has played a vital role in helping file the first case. This is Suleiman Gengeng. He is now in exile here in the US. He managed to keep record of what happened in prison, establish documents, and he has to bury those documents in his backyard till in 1999 when we start to write the first complaint. He took this out, and this is the the document that helped file the first complaint. Between 1990 and 2000, the first complaint was filed. Hissen Habré was indicted. It has created the rise of hope among victims and their allies. And at last, fear moved from the victim's side to the perpetrators. And it was really a big relief, but only shortly after that, the case was dismissed by the Senegalese court, claiming that Senegal has no jurisdiction over the case, and that is because the alleged facts was not, did not occur in Senegal. But thanks to the Belgium universal jurisdiction, the case survived. 3 victims with Belgium citizenship filed the case with the Belgium justice system under the Belgium universal jurisdiction law. Hissen Habré was indicted after 4 years of hard work. An international warrant of arrest and extradition was announced, but shortly after he was again released. It was really a matter of concern because we feel that we will never ever be able to make it happen. But fortunately, after the second decade, 2 major events will mark the turning point on this case. The first one is the election of President Macky Sall in 2012, and he immediately pledged to begin the trial of Hissen Habré. The second one is the International Court of Justice decision that obligated Senegal to trial Hissen Habré or extradite him to Belgium. After these 2 events, things have evolved rather quickly. The extraordinary chambers was created. Senegal and the AU have signed an agreement for that. And in June 13th, 2013, Hissen Habré get arrested. And it was really an explosion of joy. If you can see how victims have invaded ATPH compound to celebrate that. Many of them have just said that they were satisfied. To see the men in jail, they are totally satisfied, and no matter what happened next. So what is going on now? We right away went to Dakar to file the complaint on behalf of 1,050 victims. So this is the photo in front of the chambers, and the team of lawyers is, all of us are here. Here is the Belgium one, the Switzerland one, the Swiss one, and we are missing the French, and all three of us from Chad and the one from Senegal. So now the investigative judges have performed 4 missions to Chad to look for evidences. They have heard more than 2,000 witnesses, including direct and indirect victims. And we hope that they will soon issue a referral, a trial referral that would help the case move forward. For us, the case is strong enough, they are enough evidence, and there is nothing that can prevent the judge from issuing the trial referral decision. Hopefully, the trial will start early 2015. Now, what could we recommend at this stage? What are the recommendations? From our point of view, the Habré trial is meant to help start the reconciliation process in Chad. So in the midterm, it is really key that the Chadian government undertake a national political agreement to use the Habré case as a foundation for reconciliation. They should create a mechanism to address rehabilitation, compensation for victims, and address reconciliation. But also it will be necessary to identify reforms to create a guarantee of non-recurrence. Recently, a piece of land was allocated to victims in Jamena, where thousands of people have been buried, but there is no budget for that. So if the government wants to show some sympathy for the victims, there is a crucial need to allocate a budget for victims' monument and also for social security fund. The government should also bring Habré's accomplices to justice, including implementation of the Chamber's statute to hand over key accomplices to the extraordinary chambers. At the more regional level, the Senegal justice system, when it comes to universal jurisdiction, should be strengthened. And also the AU should extend the jurisdiction of the African Court in order to cover the crime committed by African leaders. And last but not least, it's really important to act quickly to ensure that justice is delivered to victims in the timely manner. As I just told you, that victims are dying one after another, and the process has been going on for more than 24 years now. By the time we get to the trial itself, maybe most of the victims and the survival will be gone. So that is really, really important. Now, what can be learned as lesson throughout the process? We have noticed that the cooperation among civil society organizations is key, and it has really worked well. We have civil society organizations in Chad, here in the United States, in France, in Senegal, that were able to come together and to work to be able to bring Hissen Habré to justice. But it shows also the importance of providing poor legal services, pro bono legal services, because no one could imagine that victims that come out of the prison with nothing, totally poor, cannot know how to start that process, cannot have necessary financial means to do the case. But thanks to civil society organizations that provide pro bono legal services, we are now there. Strategy is also key. While working on this case, what has worked the most is the capacity to be proactive, to act timely, legally, but also diplomatically in all the proceedings. You have to combine all this, and if one is lacking, then the process cannot move forward. But another lesson that is important to learn is the importance of international instead of domestic proceedings. We were, throughout the process, asked, why don't you ask for Hissen Habré to be trialed in Chad? But we have chosen to go for an international proceedings because the justice system in Chad cannot provide a fair trial, and that is key for us as human rights activists. We also recognize that it's really important that the judicial systems, the national judicial system should be strengthened for the future within the country so that such a process could take place within the countries. But one thing that is really, really important to note is that in such a process, when the state is not cooperating, it could be detrimental. And we have shown like no interest from the Chadian state to support the victims or to support the process. But what is also important to note is the power of individual courage, patience, faith, and sacrifices. When we are all down, desperate, frustrated, we come together and start days, nights of prayer, and this has really, really helped. And while working on that case, you need to have a spirit of sacrifice, because you cannot care about other things, because it's time consuming. You have to put a lot of energy. You have to recharge your spirit anytime. So you have to have a lot of spirit of sacrifice to keep it going. I think, yeah, I will stop there and take questions if there is. Thank you.
Delphine, thank you for telling that story and for 24 years of sacrifice that you have made that is now coming to fruition. I'd like to turn the floor over to Dave Peterson, who will have some comments and questions to share.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you, Delphine, for that wonderful presentation. I think that final concluding recommendation, or lesson learned, I should say, was really summing it all up for me. You know, the importance of individual courage and patience and sacrifice. You know, just thinking back at the 25 years that it took from the time of Hissen Habre's fall to his, you know, finally being brought before the court just last June, I think, is really a testimony to the, you know, long march to freedom and justice in Chad. You know, the sort of persistence. It was, you know, I think remarkable how much of this really turned on almost serendipity. You know, the sort of unusual accident of Belgian universal jurisdiction. I mean, this is a sort of unusual thing for any country to have, and it seems that I understand even since the Hissen Habre case, they've sort of backpedaled because this universal jurisdiction has gotten Belgium in trouble in some other situations. But in this particular case, it was there, and the human rights activists were able to take advantage of it. The same way with the election of Macky Sall. And that was really an accident. There was no knowing beforehand that Macky Sall would defeat Abdoulaye Wade in Senegal and would, you know, then be able to go forward with the prosecution of Hissen Habre. And then the ICJ's ruling that, you know, if Senegal didn't turn over Habre, that he would have to go to Belgium. I mean, all this stuff was very sort of accidental in a sense, but it happened, and the civil society organizations, the human rights activists were behind it the whole time. You know, in Africa in particular, the International Criminal Court has come under a lot of criticism. You know, the international community sort of focusing on Africa, at least that's been the criticism. You know, in the case of Central African Republic and Congo, some warlords have been brought before the court. Of course, Uhuru Kenyatta in Kenya has been charged, and Omar Bashir in Sudan. You know, so there are these other heads of state that have gotten in trouble. Of course, there's also Charles Taylor in the case of Liberia before The Hague. But I don't know of any other instance of a sort of non-governmental effort, a civil society effort to bring a former head of state to justice. Only in the case of Chad, I think. And so this is really an extremely unique case. You know, there was a event last week over at SICE, Freedom House, and Ned and some others were talking about democracy promotion. And some of the lessons learned, the final panel with Carl Gershwin, our own president, and Thomas Carruthers was there. You know, they were suggesting that over the last 10 or 20 years, support for civil society has really been maybe overvalued. You know, that we need to, we've had this discussion at the endowment, the need to focus on political movements, you know, political parties, building them up, that, you know, in the case of the Arab Spring, all these civil society organizations maybe were leading the protests, but at the end of the day, they really were not in a position to govern, and so, you know, the result is the problems that we still have in North Africa and in the Arab world. And so the sense was that the democracy community maybe needs to shift its focus away from civil society a little bit. I don't want to overstate the criticism there, but I think in this particular case, it's really important because it reminds us of the very important role that civil society really can play and does play in many of these situations throughout Africa. I mean, I've been looking at some of our other programs in countries like well, I mean, you name it. And I remember back in the day in Nigeria, this situation is similar, where the human rights organizations were being criticized during the Abacha dictatorship because they were just making a lot of noise. It really didn't seem like they were getting anywhere. But then again, by accident, General Abacha dies, and all of a sudden, everything changes. And all the work that these civil society organizations have been doing for many, many years suddenly became very important and relevant. And because of that sort of partnership they had had with the international community, and because of the networks that they had amongst themselves, the pressure was able to push the interim military government to move forward to democratic elections. And although Nigeria still has its problems today, it's certainly much more democratic than it was during the military dictatorship. And so, I think again, the role of civil society, the ability that it has to sort of prepare the ground and take advantage of opportunities when they come up out of nowhere, and then to push the process towards a more democratic and just outcome, I think is really critical here. The one thing I really wanted to ask Delphine, and I told her this before, and so she, I hope, is prepared for this question, is that she's very modest, as you could tell during the presentation. She didn't really say that much about her personal role in all of this. The APDH is the only human rights organization in Chad that has access to Chadian prison system. And so she and her organization has been able to go in and see exactly what the conditions are. I should say that she also didn't talk too much about the current situation in Chad. And although she mentioned the importance of impunity and making sure these things never happen again, the fact of the matter is that she is working in a very, very difficult political environment. Chad, if you look at the Freedom House Freedom in the World Index, is rated as a 7.6. It's considered a not free country. And if you look at the State Department's Human Rights Report, you will see that there are still very many serious problems when it comes to human rights in Chad, and there's still very many problems in the prisons. I mean, you saw about the piscine, the notorious piscine, and how terrible conditions were there, but I'm afraid that in many respects things have not gotten all that much better in Chad, and in her organization, the work that she continues to do is really trying to change that. So as important as the Hissen Habré case is, there's still the current situation that I think deserves a lot of attention that she is working on. So my question to her really is if she could just give us a little more of her personal history. What it's like working in Chad today, what it was like for her personally and for her organization, and for some of the people that she mentioned there, what their experiences were throughout this process. But I think that's enough from me. Delphine?
Thank you, Dave. It's always difficult to talk about oneself, I will just say that Chad is still a very difficult country to be a human rights defender in. I have helped found the Chadian Association for the Promotion of Human Rights. It has not been easy, but we managed to get it going. When Hissen Habré was overthrown, we take the opportunity to really quickly work on human rights issues like the prison conditions, like the freedoms, and it was really hard because right after my colleague from the Chadian League for Human Rights was just killed, that was Joseph Beidi. And it was very difficult because the all-over security situation was of concern. But we keep doing the work. Thanks God, we are still alive. We start with the victims, right? When they come out from the DDS prison, thanks. I was in Chad at that moment, and I witnessed how things are. I can still have in mind how horrible that was. And we decided to help them. So we helped them set up their organization. We brought the issue up to the National Sovereign Conference because the report that came out of the investigation commission was even more terrifying. And problems have started at this stage when the government realized that this is something that can bring them more problems than they expected. And they have stopped all support from the commission. They have really tried to set back everything that has been done. That's why I showed you that men who have to bury the documents because they will go after anyone who try to push the case forward. Even when two of the interns from Human Rights Watch have been sent to Chad to help us, they were targeted by the current government political police. So we have to send them back right away to show you how difficult the situation is even now. I used to say that the situation is more difficult because under Hissen Habré, it's an open dictatorship, so you know and what could happen to you. You know the risks, and nobody was able to start even the human rights organization under Hissen Habré. But now they said that it's a democracy, it's open, but still you cannot be safe if you work on human rights issues. So after the first complaint, I have to hand the case over to Jacqueline Mudena, I showed you, because by that time I was not acting lawyer yet. So I have to go take my bar exam, and while she's working on the case, and I'm sure she's doing it well, I was taking care of other issues like the Chad-Cameroon pipeline, helping people on the ground have their voice out. So lately, I came back because I'm now a lawyer, acting lawyer, and I joined the team of international lawyers acting on behalf of the victims. One thing that makes me feel really sad is that when I asked Jacqueline to act as a lawyer in the case, in 2001, she was targeted and she was badly wounded. she got, till now has many health problems due to that. So that is something that keeps me going, because here is someone that I bring to the case, and she is about to get killed because of the case. So I will never let the case down, because it will be like exposing someone and leaving her alone. So yeah, that. And she did really, really well. And what is also frustrating is that, as I said, you cannot get recognized in Chad for what you are doing. You cannot get even a small recognition from your own government. But at the international level, she has received livelihood award in 2012. So to say that it needs to be done, I encourage all the youths that I work with to take the courage to be engaged in the human rights activism, and I think that God is with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Delphine. We have time now for Q&A and discussion. I don't know if anybody has a first question to ask. Oh, several people. I see this lady here, right here, and then the two gentlemen. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Sophia Lim from Freedom House. I had the pleasure of being a student of Professor Ree Brody when I was in law school, and he told us about the stories, the soap opera that has led to Hissen Habre's trial. So, and his personal sacrifice and sacrifice of his legal team. And so I really admired the tenacity and persistence of the plaintiffs and the legal team. So thank you so much. My question is that since the trial will be held in Senegal and the judges are, I understand, 2 Senegalese and 2 other judges will be appointed by the AU, how can we ensure that the victims in Chad can participate in the process and feel a sense of redress? And also, how do we make sure that these legal proceedings that can strengthen the rule of law in Senegal, but also in Chad, by setting an example that the most powerful person can be tried, and the worst human rights violators will have the right to due process of law. Thank you.
I can take some.
Well, why don't you answer these two at this time, whether you feel the victims can participate fully in the process, and how it sets an example for Chad.
Thank you for the question. The extraordinary chambers are an international body. Judges are from Senegal. They are Senegalese citizens, but they are appointed by the African Union. So the victims, that is a question that is regulated by the statutes. The statute says that the trial will be broadcast in Chad and in Senegal, because there are more than there are thousands of victims there. We cannot bring them all to Senegal. So by the mean of communication, it will be possible for all victims from Chad to follow the trial. But still, there is a big debate going on about how to do the transmission, and when to do it, whether it will be all the trial or some parts of it. The debate still going on. Our expectation is that the trial will help strengthen the rule of law in both countries and also in the whole Africa. Why not? It will set a precedent, as I said, and leaders will be afraid to violate human rights of their population because they will fear the trial. So that's what is expected out of the case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This gentleman here, and then you could identify yourself.
Okay. Good afternoon. It's on? My name is Nuran Bashir. I'm from the Embassy of Chad. But actually, I'm from the Embassy of Chad, but also one of the victims of the issue in discussion. Really, before I say anything, please give me extra few minutes to give you some very important information about this case.
I'm sorry that we don't have time for a speech, so if you could make your comment short and ask a question. Thank you.
Very proudly, I would like to thank Dr. Delphine for her job because I know and I'm closely following her activities in this issue because me, one of the victims of Hissen Habre actions, and I don't believe one single Chadian family has been affected by this issue more than my family. And I believe Dr. Delphine will agree with me on that because just let me give you very simple example how I can say that. 13, not 3, 13 of my close families were killed by Hissen Habre. 6 of them were my uncles. One of them is junior, the rest are senior brothers of my mom. They were killed in one room. In one room. They were arrested differently, but they gathered together to kill them together. So efforts like this from Dr. Delphine, which we have very few doctor holders, female doctor holders in Chad, less than my fingers of my 2 hands. She's doing very wonderful job.
Thank you very much for sharing.
I have a lot to say, but the time limit will not allow me.
I appreciate very much your comments and sharing with us. Thank you. This gentleman here, yes? Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon. My name is Lod Ngoto Bekingala. I was born in Chad, and I am one of witness the Hissen Habre government. First of all, I would like to answer the question of Mr. Peterson. I think Delphine Djiraibe is one of the courageous, brave firefighter in Chad for the human rights. So it's the time, it's the moment just to congratulate her. Okay, I come back to the fact. The fact that Hissen Habre commit in Chad as violence, intimacy, and fear. It is the system of ruling the country. And today, it is obvious that Habre did. And when we saw the picture, I look at on my left, I look at on my right, and I see the faces, some people. So they try to feeling the suffer of Chadian people. If we have people who suffer by themselves in their body, they will cry in this room. So I come back to say that bringing Hissen Habre to the justice is the system that has a lot of system. Let me give you a few systems. The government of Chad is one system, Hissen Habre is another system, and the people who try to bring Hissen Habre to justice is another system. And the 2 other systems, I will start by the government of Chad right now. Some days, they show the goodwill for the cooperation, and the next day, you see another face. Let me give you an example.
And if you could complete your remarks, and if you have a question,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
My big concern is that I can jump, but you can understand. My big concern is one side, you have people, victims who had no money with the lawyer, and the other side, you have Hissen Habré was a lot of money. And also, you have government of Chad that someday show the sign of cooperation, and another day, they show another thing. So how victim and the lawyer can fight and attain their goal, that's my biggest concern.
Okay, thank you. Delphine, would you like to answer that question?
Thank you very much, both of you, for your kind comments. The question is how victims and lawyers could face the perpetrators who are still powerful and have all means to fight us back. I agree, because over 2 decades we were trying hard, but Hissen Habré has left Chad with all the treasury. He has a lot of money. He is still very influenced. He has a lot of influence on decision makers, especially in Senegal, where he is well integrated. He has support from his Muslim groups, but thanks God, in 2000 and from 2010 to 2012, there is a film out there named La Traque des Dictateurs. I wish you can all watch this film, who give a detailed information about what Hissen Habré has done to Chadian people. And we managed to get this film shown to grassroots peoples in Senegal to show them how bad the man is, because they were supporting him. I can remember the first complaint that we filed, we were doing a public conference about it, and the supporters will address us, throw tables on us, because they said, this is a kind man, he is going every Friday to prayer, he is quiet, he is giving us support, why you are after him? But it has only shifted when we managed to get information really out to people. So now Senegalese people are aware of what has happened in Chad. And one evidence is that before before the 13th of June, the idea of Senegalese is to say, we will never let Hissen Habré go to prison. If they try to arrest him, we will get out and support him. But in 2013, after making them aware of the reality of the situation, nobody has come out when he gets arrested. So that is important. I think that our strength also comes from the fact that we have the law with us, and the facts are speaking for themselves. So it is difficult. You can see that it's exactly like a battle between David and Goliath, as described in the Bible. But with the small means that we have the law with us, and we are sure that now we are at the stage where nothing could defeat the truth. It will happen no matter time it will take, because we know that the enemies, I call them like that, have a lot of means to fight us back, but it will go forward and it will happen. And I can't wait to see Hissen Habré and his accomplices in front of the judge, either in Dakar or who knows, maybe somewhere else.
This
Thank you.
gentleman in front, please. He's been very patient. Hello.
Hello, thank you. My name is Nia Kwete. I want to thank my sister very much. I've worked in Africa policy around Washington for a long time. We fight a lot of issues, but if there is one that I hate the most is dictatorships in Africa. So your work in bringing one to justice is wonderful. I think this panel is wonderful. But I have a provocative question. You mentioned that in Dakar, in Senegal, when people found out what had really happened, they changed their views. I would like to do the same thing in the United States, because I think Hissen Habré is absolutely atrocious. I've been studying him since 1982. And he came to power, he was actually put in power by the Reagan administration. They sent troops, they sent money, they sent all kinds of things and supported him. So what I think would have been a great panel, instead of how we bring dictators to justice, is why do we go around Africa implanting dictatorships? Why is it that the US does that, and how do we get the American people to prevent that? Because I don't think it serves US interest to have dictators like Habré. And he's just one of many. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a couple other hands. I guess we'll just go back. This gentleman right here, and then two. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Djiraibe. I appreciate your work. I will build my question on what Mr. Peterson said. Chad was evaluated as 7.6 in terms of freedom.
96.
7.6 on the Freedom House scale. Seven. It's at the bottom of the list.
That's a real understatement. You know, victims like Maitre Beidei, Ibn Omar Mohammed Saleh, and yes, Abbas Koti, these are not Hissen Habré's victims. Ms. Delphine mentioned in her presentation that there are two main actors, President Saleh and the actual president in Yemena. I'm worried because you mentioned a lot of victims are dying now. After all, it's a quarter century. Yeah. Given this situation, I see it as a typical justice delayed is justice denied.
Yes. Thank you.
So please, just ensure us that the process will really take place in a very short time, because it's not short, quarter century.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. The two gentlemen, there's Moreira, and then the gentleman behind.
I appreciate, Delphine, your presentation, but I have two quick questions. One is, I think you are trying to bring a dictator out of power. Do you think, is there a possibility in Chad to bring dictators, probably even lesser dictators, who are in power? This is one. The other thing is, you several times mentioned about AU. AU is in Addis Ababa, and probably I know it better. It is a trade union of dictators. So what is your phase in the AU? Because the AU is sheltering al-Bashir, sheltering Uhuru Kenyatta, sheltering many dictators not to go to Hague.
Thank you, Moreira. Those were excellent questions. And finally, the gentleman there. We'll take one more.
My name is Amir Reji. I'm originally from south of Chad, And I was 24 years old when Habre was on power. I was a radio operator in Exxon company working there. And every day, during the night, there was a minister from Habre killing people, my parents, but during the day, spending all the day in the radio room at Exxon company with me. I was wondering what he was doing. At what time, at that time, if I have an arm, I will kill him. But I was just 24 years, I could not do anything. So I'm bearing that until now. So I think Jacqueline, Maître Jacqueline, for that opportunity. But here, my question is how the government, the American government, who has made this man stronger, can really go after him and put him down. Because I strongly believe in the democracy of America, the government American going through who hates democracy and put him to jail. My question is how can they really help Jacqueline to go after this man and put him in jail, because if not, then it will be difficult.
Thank
24 years now, and you see, it will not finish.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have a couple questions on U.S. foreign policy, but the issue of the victims who are dying, the need to move forward with all speed at this time. I know this is a top concern of yours. Maybe you could address how you're trying to move things forward. And then Morera's questions about bringing someone who is in power to justice, and also the African Union. So if you might address those, and Dave, if you have any comments, please.
Thank you again. I know that if it depends only on us, the trial of Hissen Habré have been done a while ago, and we are doing what is in our power to push it forward. But as I mentioned, it's difficult, and it needs the combination of all efforts, including victims that are in a position to help, that they should be able to speak out and help. They should be able, because now there is a debate going on about the implementation of the chamber statutes. You know, we are in the process where the investigative judges could issue their decision, but they need to have some key accomplishers that are now held in jail in Chad. And Chad is not keen of implementing this. So I hope for my brother at the embassy that this is the moment to speak out and to ask the government of Chad to implement the statute that would help push the case forward. I know that there is human rights violations issues that are out there, and we need also to speak out about this and to work about this. And my colleague Merara knows very well that if it depends only on he and me, then things have changed a long time ago. I know that the African Union is a trade union of African leaders, but for now, as African leaders, their trade union, they don't want to be prosecuted in the West by West people, and we all know what kind of debate is going on about that. And now we are taking them on their words. They have created the extraordinary chambers as a way to avoid the West to prosecute African leaders. So now, let's go. We're not saying no, we are there. Let's go and do the work. But what is of concern is that, as I also said, there is gameplay around that. But it is only about time. I am really confident that they will be taken within the trap they are creating. Because if the trial doesn't take place, so what to do? Aren't they going to say that no, now Hissen Habré could not be trialed even in Africa? They will then show their bad faith about what they have set up to show the West that Africa could do the same thing that is been doing in the West. They don't want to send al-Bashir to the ICC. So if they don't trial Hissen Habré in Africa, the only option will be to send him to Belgium. And that is what the International Court of Justice have said. There are many human rights violations issues in Chad right now, but I am here to talk about the Hissen Habré trial. We can have another conference on the human rights situation in Chad now. I will be happy to talk about that. I am one of the lawyers acting on behalf of Ibn Umar Mamad Saleh disappearance. And we keep working. There are a lot of issues to work on, but unfortunately, there are not many people out there to work on those kind of risky issues. So we need to take one thing at a time. But we are not forgetting the situation, the current situation in Chad, who is not far from dictatorship. On the role of the US, maybe Dave will say something, but I am happy that it is not a taboo. There are articles out there talking about the role that US have played during the Hissen Habré regime. So thanks to the democracy, people are talking about that. So it is not a secret anymore, because we feel that this is an element that have held the process back. But now it is not anymore, because the US has contributed to the fund to establish the extraordinary chambers. And I don't see how they can stand up and support the idea of not bringing Hissen Habré to justice. But as you know, politics is complicated, and we will want really to see United States show more political support for human rights situation in Chad and broadly in Africa. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be happy to take on Nee's question because I agree with you, Nee. You know, the United States was complicit in Hissen Habré, in supporting his regime. Of course, those were the Cold War days too, and I guess it was seen that Habré was fighting with Gaddafi in Libya, and so that was the justification. But you know, those years from 82 to 90 when Habré was in power were a very dark time in all of Africa. I mean, if you want to think about all the other dictators the United States was supporting at that time, you know, there was Mobutu, there was even Mary in Sudan. I mean, across the board, Africa was just a continent of dictators. I mean, like Moreira says, you know, the AU is a club of dictators even today, but it's not nearly as bad today as it was, you know, in the 80s. That's for sure. I think, you know, as far as the current heads of state are concerned, we had a meeting here at the endowment last week on the Africa Summit. And of course, I think one of the main concerns about that summit that's coming up in August is that a lot of the heads of state that are going to be coming to Washington are not democratic. Some of them are old-fashioned dictators. And, you know, looking at the newspaper even today, as far as Chad is concerned, you know, the United States is depending on Chad to, I think, base some of our cruise drones, you know, that are going into Nigeria. And so, you know, as unsavory as the current government may be, and it's not just Chad, there's a lot of others. Moreira knows well that where the United States has security interests, we tend to, you know, look the other way when it comes to the state of democracy and human rights in the country too often.
May I ask if there are any last questions? We have a few more minutes. Yes, well, no, I'm going to turn to someone who hasn't had a chance. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, hi. My name is Edward Sekamanya. When you see a title like Bring a Dictator to Justice, you feel some hope for Africa. You're like, you know, maybe the dictators will stop misbehaving. Then it takes about 20 years. But my question is, there is evidence that other people supported him, enabled him. Is there a way this court can also bring them to justice, you know, such that it's not just one person? Wars cost money. They are extremely expensive to maintain. And most of these dictators are fighting proxy wars. So how about all these other people? We could try them in Africa in absence and convict them and issue arrest warrants, you know, just to make a statement. Is something like that being done or even considered?
Thank you. Yes, Delphine, about the accomplices. Would you like to say a word, and then we'll wrap up?
Yeah, all the Hissen Habré accomplices, there are many out there. There is a complaint in Chad about some, and some are also concerned by the complaint in Dakar. And I have put up some names there. Those are the key accomplices that would be brought to Dakar to for the trial. So nobody is escaping the process. All the accomplices, all people that are involved at any level, they are concerned by the process. But the only problem, as I said, the current government of Chad doesn't show a lot of political will to push the process forward. And the process in Chad is there, and yeah, as the justice system is all controlled, it's not moving. So this is the problem. Yeah.
Delphine, before we close, did you want to make any last comments?
Okay. I will take the opportunity to really say thank you to Ned, thank you to all the staffs, thank you very much, Hilary, for your support, and Sally, thank you, Dave, for your comment. I am really fortunate to be here and to be like away from for a while from a difficult environment. It's for me really restful, and I can get up in the morning, do whatever I want without any concern. I can be out till night, and that is important. Yeah, so really thank you very much. And more important, I want to say that for this trial, we need support. We need your support, any kind of support to keep it going. And I know that Ned has supported us to provide pro bono legal services to poor people in Chad, and I hope this will continue because it is key. Thank you all for your time, and thank you for coming.